Good job. This is interesting stuff, isn't it? Because we're definitely pushing the time limit this evening with you all. So yeah, always a popular section in tips and tricks. A few volunteers this time round. Chris, where are you? Aha. You give him your mic.
I'm actually with Pizzoni Architects, but never mind. I'm not here in an official capacity. Are these just ordered as I sent them through, do you know? Or, oh, is it going? Can we pause? Right, quickly, just using the power of... Well, actually, let me try and pause this because I'm going to get out of sync quite quickly. Let me bring it back. Didn't realise it was going to autoplay. Right, so some of these are really pretty basic and you might know it already, but if you don't, it might rock your world. This is, the first two are really just using stuff which you probably use in other programs, but you might not realise they work within Revit. So just using your mouse wheel and control, if I can get this going again, you can change the size of certain windows, such as here. Within the properties palette, if you use control and scroll, you can squidge it down and squidge it up so you can read things a bit better. This is sometimes a problem if you're working on a tiny little monitor or a laptop. Hope that one was clear, so that's just control and scroll on your mouse. Next one, again, Revit text is a bit rubbish a lot of the time, and you can sometimes be short of special characters and symbols. And I've sometimes reverted to writing degrees rather than putting in a little symbol, but I got fed up with it. And again, you might know this, but I didn't realise there was a thing called character map within Windows. So if you go just temporarily outside of the Revit environment and go to run, press enter and then type char map or character map, you'll get taken to a window where you've got every sort of symbol under the sun, hopefully, which you'd need to use. You can search within this, so here I search for degree, it came up with the degree symbol. You can copy that, it goes onto the clipboard, and then you can just insert it into your text. It doesn't look quite right until you exit the text, but there it's there, and you can find cube and squared or whatever else. I can't remember what's coming up next. Okay, this is a little bit more of a complicated one compared to the last ones, and it runs for about 2 minutes, and I haven't practiced what words I'm going to put with the video, so bear with me. It's about just saving yourself a bit of time in the family editor environment. I'm a sort of medium level user, I don't get involved in Dynamo or anything, but I do a bit of family editing. So here we've got a kind of electrical symbol family, and there's lots of different types from the same family for different wall-based symbols. As you can see there, there's different light switches and buttons which you can switch between according to your use. Every now and again we might get asked to make a new button of one sort or another, and it means making a new type within a family. We control the different visibilities of the types by using yes-no visibility parameters, but you run into problems, well, annoying sort of time-consuming problems when you make a new one. I'm just going to pause it here to see where we've got up to. First of all, you would make a new type normally, then you would make your visibility parameter to control that new family type's visibility. The symbol associated with it you would turn the new family element symbols on, and all the other different types you'd have all their symbols turned off. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, what's going on here?
Press the
back.
Yeah. And then just
I'll have to run it again, sorry. I'll skip forward a bit. Right. Right, so we're in Family Editor. You can see all the different types within this one family. Switching between them switches those visibility controls on and off. and basically it's one control per type. So we're making a new type here, just calling it big red button, for example. We've made the type. Now we're going to make a new parameter to control this element's new visibility things. So it's making the new parameter, yes no parameter here, and this is where the problem comes on. After you've made this, the default thing is that it switches back to on the new parameter in every type which is already there. And I used to go through each one and click it off and click it off and click it off, and I used to do my nutting for like 2 minutes. But if you use in the formula bar here, this is the key bit and the whole point of it. If you put in there 1 is greater than 2, I don't know if you can see that at the back, but it's obviously illogical. Revit doesn't like that, and it greys out that row. And the beauty is it greys it out in every one. It turns it off essentially in every one. Then the sweet thing is you go back and you delete it in one of the different ones and it becomes active again, and you can just go back into your new family and switch it to on in that one only. Is that sort of clear? It's just a little cheat which can save a few minutes. And that's it. Okay. Yeah.
Do you need to use 2 symbols at the same time? Because you could use the family type parameter, then create different detail items or generic annotations.
Yeah, the different types will have a different symbol. So using that yes no is just switching between whether that symbol is visible or not.
Yes, but you will never need to have 2 visibility boxes checked, would you?
Potentially you might. Okay. Depends on the family. That was just an example of using that 1 is greater than 2, and
okay.
it could be a window family or something else. You could use it for any new yes no parameter to just quickly get them all as off,
okay.
rather than on.
We tend to use I think it's family type parameter, I think, yeah. So we just say, in this case, let's say create multiple detail item families, one for each symbol, and you nest them all into the main family, and then you select one. You just need to select one and apply the label as a label family type parameter, and once you do that you'll have a drop down box with all the detail item symbols, so you just click and choose the one that you want to apply. And if you want to remove or include additional symbols, you just create a new detail item family and nest it back in, and it will be available next time.
Okay, that sounds like a good way if you're starting it from scratch. Yeah.
You need 2 symbols to show at once, that's why I asked.
Right, but it doesn't work, you can only pick one. Yeah. So you're choosing between alternates, yeah. You could group them, I suppose, if you've got a primary one, you could drive all those by that, could you?
I don't know, probably not.
You could have a second label, which by default is set to none.
Okay, yeah.
So you create a dummy family that's blank.
Yeah.
And then that would be set to none.
Yes, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, a couple of quick ones just to wrap up. Forget which one this one is. Okay, so in a slightly different order. This is a subtlety for using equality constraints. So I've got 3 lovely chairs here that I want to control, make sure they're equidistant. But there's also an additional feature for this. You don't normally see it. It's a little anchor, and this is the anchor point of the constraint. This is only visible, obviously, if you've got 3 or more and you use an equality constraint. You can move this anchor point, and as you do, when you move the edge, or move the object that you're selecting, it will move in relation to that particular anchor point. So if it's in the center, then it will move them both out. If it's on the edge, then it just moves the edge one. Again, if you have like 4 or 5 objects, then you can choose specifically which one you want to be the anchor point. So potentially good for laying out lots of rooms or lots of walls quickly. Yeah, it's a very subtle one, but probably one that a lot of people will miss, and because it only really appears in a blink of an eye, and then if you move away from it, you won't see the anchor. And normally it's visible when you hover over an equality constraint dimension. Okay, so the next one is finding out the culprit, the person who makes that modeling mistake or that modeling change. And this is using, so if you see, normally if you hover over something, you see this little tip, and it just gives you a little bit of information. It says what work set it's on, what the object is, and potentially the type as well. But if you turn on the work set display settings, this one's just the default one. Now if you hover over it, it tells you who created it, when it was last updated, so you can, and who's got current requests. The interesting thing, anybody who's opened this will realize that this is actually an Autodesk model, and it's actually a standalone model, but when you work share it, you can still get to that information about who made those changes. So that's a real nice one, so you can pin down those guys and throttle them.
Managers in the room then sort of nodded in approval. The sort of users sort of looked at them about to throw the chair at you.
Okay.
Cheers. Right. Me again. Really quick one. I do know, when I was a structural technician, I got asked all the time, how do I put movement joints in? And my answer was draw a big fat line with a dotted on it. But if you want to be a bit more sophisticated than that, you can and tie it to that. Obviously, you can use the parts function. Now, the reason, this isn't really a demonstration of parts, but more the fact that if you want to have that representation, that line representation of an object, like a longitudinal movement joint, if you use reference planes and give those reference planes a name, then basically what we're able to do is we're able to first of all tie that representation to those reference planes, and then break up the slab by those reference planes as well, just tying together the annotational representation of that joint and the actual physical joint itself. So I'm just giving those reference planes a name, and then when I start up the parts tool, who uses parts in here in their job? It's got its pluses and minuses, hasn't it? Yeah. Mainly not showing in all views and so forth. So if I now go ahead and put that movement joint line onto and just lock it in, so we've got our annotation or representation, and then if I click on the slab itself, go up to my parts tool, and I'm going to use this option in here called divide parts, and then intersecting references. And when we use the intersecting references tool, you can see all the datums, including the reference planes. So I can grab those reference planes that are intersecting that particular slab, and by doing that, it'll break that slab in those particular positions. Just when you switch to your 3D view or any other view that from the one you enabled, just remember to click on Show Parts. That used to throw me a lot. So you get your parts, shown there, which has broken up that slab into its pores. But now, of course, because of that, if I move that dimension he's going to move that line across, which is my annotation, plus because it's tied to the reference plane, that part itself automatically updates, all the quantities update, all that kind of thing as well. Okay. Hopefully that's useful. Yes. So in here, if I go to here and then go to edit gap, I can put a gap in there of 50 millimeters. You got a second ahead of me there. You got a second ahead. You can actually apply a profile to that gap as well. So if you want the actual shape of the gap profiled in, you can do that as well. So it's quite a nice little tool actually. It's almost as if I thought about that question. Topography is always an issue. Now, I don't know. I was trying to think of an example, and I might not have come up with a very good one here, to be honest. But say I've got a section through topo. I just want to put in a wall, and I want that wall base to follow the topo fall. Now, one of the major issues is no snap options. You know, when you've sectioned through topography, it doesn't matter if you triangulate it or whatever you want to do. You just simply won't get snap options. Which is a bit of a pain in the backside, frankly. But if you isolate the topo surface and export it to a DWG, if you export to DWG, just make sure you use shared coordinates when you're exporting it. Make sure you turn off this option as well for export views. If I just reference in that CAD file, you'll find that obviously you get your topographical surface. If I section through it, now if I draw an object like a wall, like an in-place wall or something like that, I will find that I can now completely trace the topographical surface. Yeah. I don't think you can with topo. You can't use parts on topographical, can you? No, unfortunately not. It's not an option. It's a nice thought, but it doesn't work, unfortunately. Another thing I didn't mention actually, I was going to put it in as a tip, I didn't get time. If you're having problems getting families to sit on top of the topographical surface, in other words, you put a family in and it always goes down to level 1 or something like that, and doesn't find the surface. I know it's a bit of a cheat, but just change the category to planting. It'll solve the problem. Or any family you create will suddenly follow. It will suddenly just sit on top of the topographical surface. Okay, so just do that. Okay. Although you will have a lot of plants when you do your schedule. Upsides, downstairs. A couple of blasts from the past. Really quick one. These ones I've presented before. Hover over a pipe or a duct. A lot of people don't even realise this. Probably a day one thing. Press the space bar as you're hovering over something. It orientates itself to the actual object. Who didn't know that, by the way? Just be honest. Because I teach people who have been doing it for ages and still have that. This is the thing that Kevin talked about earlier on about putting masses into depth. So I'm going to skip over it because you've just heard it from Kevin. This very lastly is one that I did in the past. Again, it's a common thing. People don't know how to use these ifs, ands and not statements. They're actually incredibly easy to use. But you can see I've got in here just a basic representation where I've got item 1, 2 and 3 which has got visibility controls on them. If I write and, open bracket, item 1, item 2, close bracket, that means that item 3 will only turn on if item 1 and item 2 is in use or are turned on. So item 1, item 2, make sure that item 3 comes in. Yeah, it's just an and statement. So, and the one that I probably like the most and what I find the most useful is a combination of and not. So if you use and, if you use not and, not and or, beg your pardon, that's the way I did it in this one. So if you do item 1, item 2, close bracket, that basically says if either item 1 or item 2 is turned on or both of them, then if they're both turned off, then it will switch on item 4. Does that make sense? So if I turn them both off, item 4 becomes visible instead. Simple, but can actually solve quite a lot of problems in terms of how to control these things. And you can do it embedded, as I say. Right. Okay.